Hello and welcome to the 3T RPG podcast. My name is Harrison Hunt and with me is Nicholas Lamley.
Well, hello there.
And of course we've got James the Clark.
Oh yeah, the one and only.
This, by the way, is an RPG show all about tabletop RPGs. But before we begin, I want to thank Ace B, Jason Duncan, fucked that up, Julian Bernick and Ryan Wahab. These guys pledge at the Dreadlord level over on Patreon, and if you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/3TRPG podcast. I've got another quick shout out I want to do as well. CJ Stott, loyal listener. Yeah, he's a cool fucking guy, and he's sending us the full suite of Hackmaster books of the latest edition. I know he's a good guy. So we're gonna be.
He's a good egg.
He's a good egg. If indeed he is an egg, but I have it on good authority that he is in fact a man.
Okay. He's actually human.
But
nevertheless,
that said, he is sending us the latest edition, and we're going to do a full sort of history of the Hackmaster episode once those arrive. And
it's going to be fun.
Basically, what that means is he now owns the show.
Okay. Oh, is he like executive CEO?
He is, yeah. So he gets to dictate what we do on this show now, and he owns the company. So if you want to do the same, send us, well, either RPG products or solid gold bars. We accept either.
Yeah, we take bullion.
We do take bullion and
diamonds, rare diamonds.
Rare diamonds would be nice.
Diamonds. Common diamonds.
Or even common. We don't mind. All right. Yeah. But yeah, today we've got a show for you today. I'm not going to say how good it's going to be because I don't know. But we've got feedback, we've got the news, we've got what you've been saying, where we talk about what we've been playing, and then of course we're going to go into the main subject, which is micro RPGs and why we need them. We're going to sort of go through a few here today. And then, of course, we've got Electro Letters where we're going to answer your questions. But for now, shall we feed the back?
Yeah.
Don't sound too excited, James.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been feeding it all week, is that why?
His back is full.
It's been gnawing at my arm. My fingers are painful.
The feedback side. The feedback side. Yes, bitch, the feedback side. It's the feedback section.
Yeah, we take your comments and read them out. Yeah, feedback, bitch.
So first bit of feedback comes in from Ace B. He's talking about the Cyberpunk episode we did, and he said hacking is great. What he means is the hacking in the game, but time consuming. After Alsorium released a card game to kind of balance speed versus complexity of hacks, I've never seen it in real life. I actually knew somebody that played this. It was called Netrunner, and it was a deck building game where you bought, I think, pre-made decks, and you just played them.
Oh, so it's separate from Shadowrun then? It's not
Cyberpunk.
You don't use it with Shadowrun.
What?
Cyberpunk game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a separate card game. I don't know if it's actually supposed to be in place of the hacking in the game, but it's set in the same universe, basically. But he continues, and he says, it was good that Cyberpunk allows for some cinematic moments because the combat is deadly and clunky. Roll to hit, subtract cover stats, figure out how much gets through your armour, figure out how much your armour ablates, take damage, roll for shock. Yeah, he is right. It is quite complicated in that particular thing because we discussed it last episode. Like, you kind of, when you're shooting at somebody, it's kind of annoying because you have to subtract the amount of damage you do from their armour, so you subtract that from the damage. But if they're behind cover, you have to subtract the stopping power of the cover first, see how many bullets get through, subtract the amount of cover, then subtract the amount of armour. But I think once you get used to it, you can do it quite quickly. But the problem we found in the game is when you're doing full auto, Nick, so like in Savage Worlds, for example, if you do full auto, rate of fire 3, I think it's called, you just roll 3 dice and take the higher. So it's an abstract way of doing full auto. But in this game, you have to roll to see how many bullets hit, then roll damage for each bullet. And now some machine guns can do 5d6 damage. So if you hit with 7 bullets, you have to roll all 7 bullets separately, by the way, then do the armour, then do the cover. No, the other way around. But anyway, yeah, it can be annoying. So I actually looked up the full auto rules in Cyberpunk Red, the latest version, and that is in fact what I'm going to use when we play on Friday. But because it's a more abstract one. Instead, the amount of bullets that hit is like you roll the to hit roll, and how many you get over the target number is how many bullets hit. Up to 4 for machine guns, up to 3 with submachine guns, and then you just roll that amount times the number of d6. So it's like if you hit with 4 bullets, you just roll 4 times 2d6. So you just roll 8d6, and that's the damage one roll. Which is quite a fair bit better. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Still clunky, but the thing is that the only problem is the world is quite well written and really well done. That I don't really want to have to port it over to another game, and I just want to use the book and use the shit in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, definitely.
Yeah.
That is it for feedback. We only got that one from Ace Speed this time. Super fan.
Super Ace.
I tell you what, we've got some bloody good news today. Well, it's not good news. We got some bad news today. Let's do it.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, news punch.
So the first one, right, now this isn't necessarily big news or even really worth talking about, but it's something I wanted to have a bit of a moan about. Is that alright with you guys?
Yeah.
Go on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go on. Agony aunt.
Thank you. I've been losing sleep over this one.
Let it all out.
Thanks, Nick. I need it. So yeah, Dark Trails changes its name. Now I know what you're thinking. It's not the Chaosium product Dark Trails, where it's Cthulhu meets the West. It's the DCC product where the Cthulhu meets the West. Let me tell you this, right? Dark Trails is a Weird West setting for DCC, and it combines the Cthulhu mythos and Wild West, along with luchador wrestling. Chaosium obviously released the book with the same name and basically the same setting, but obviously they released it before the Dark Trails by Stiff Whiskers Press for DCC. So a legal battle commenced, and ultimately what happened is this. Chaosium gave the game's publisher, Stiff Whiskers, a settlement, right? But he was to use that to rebrand his game to Weird Frontiers. Now, it's not exactly newsworthy, and I think that it's kind of interesting in a way. But I wanted to mention this because I got this email in a Kickstarter update that told me about this, right? The 69th update since I backed this project, and the update said, important, please read. And I thought, right, it's finally out. My books are coming.
Here we go.
Me and Nick ordered one each,
It's
actually.
coming.
And it was just an update about a name change. And I backed this in May 2019.
Oh no, I'm getting flashbacks.
And I'm
to that death I
I'm
was waiting
fucking sick of it. I don't even give a shit about this fucking book anymore. I'd rather have my money
You
back.
couldn't care less.
I know, because you know, like, I thought the Savage Worlds was bad, like when you get it a year later and your hype has really died down, but this is taking the piss.
It's a distant memory now. I'll be honest with you though. I think I like Weird Frontiers as a name more than I do Dark Trails.
I do too, I think it's
Is
great.
there not any way of like dropping out now? They've been too fucking long with all this.
Too late,
shit.
mate, he's already got my money.
No, we're in, mate. We're in.
What?
We're
Oh,
right
yeah,
in
of
there,
course.
James.
Ah.
The thing is, I don't mean any ill will to the game's creator, because it is being made by one guy, David Beatty, who's actually written stuff for DCC, and he's an extremely good writer and a very clever bloke. But the only trouble is that there's sort of a golden rule with Kickstarter when you're making an RPG product, and it's have the whole thing written when you go to Kickstarter, right? Then to worry about layout, worry about changes, editing, all of this, but have the whole thing written so that your fans can expect it in a reasonable time. And all we've got so far is a discount for a Jumpstart version on DriveThruRPG. Not a physical book, mind you, but that's what I bloody ordered, and it's been nearly 2 years.
Fuck.
Sick of it. D&D TV show by John Wick creator.
Here we go.
That's the next headline, by the way. It wasn't related to. So Derek Kolstad, the creator and writer behind the John Wick franchise, if you can believe such a thing that it was actually written by somebody, has been tapped to pen and develop a pitch for a live-action series based on the Dungeons & Dragons universe. Now, I don't know, because, you know, writers get assigned to projects all the time and then they just go under and never get made. But it would be fucking cool if he did this.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially him, because he knows how to do action well.
Well,
Really
He
well.
won't disappoint in that
but he knows how
regard.
to do gun action well.
That's the trouble.
Yeah.
But maybe if he sets it in Eberron, where there are guns, that would be pretty cool.
True.
'Cause
Well, that was what
guess-
I was going to ask next. It's like, you know, not being funny, but the D&D universe is pretty big.
Yeah, that's true. Because it could be just about anything, you know.
Just orcs.
But I will say this: I'm not sure if he had a background in like firearms and stuff before he made John Wick. But there's loads of really cool little details where it's kind of like accurate in John Wick. You know, like there's some that aren't, but you know, like there's a bit where he's fighting somebody underwater, and he kind of like swims away from them because he knows the bullets will be ineffective within a like
certain range or
2
whatever.
feet.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean?
cool.
So
that's cool.
yeah, and it's like loads of really clever little details like that in John Wick that kind of make it really cool. I mean, the story's rubbish, but the action is really good. And
I remember talking to you about John Wick years ago.
yeah, I mean, it was like episode 6 of this podcast when we first mentioned it. I watched it maybe 6 months ago. Great film, but I would just I don't know about this if he can do D&D, but if his research for John Wick goes into D&D and he makes like really good, I don't know, bow and arrow based action, do you know what I mean?
No, I think he could, because obviously that's his. I feel like that's his thing. It's like he wants it to be as raw as possible. So if there's any sort of say ranged weapons and all that, he'll actually get proper detailing in that.
That's
So I
true.
don't think we'll be disappointed with the action, but as we know, the story may be toilet.
But if that's all right, though. The thing is, he makes a gritty film, right? So we're all hoping for a cop drama that's just orcs, really gritty.
I'm asking you to hand in your badge, Grub Thrubnub. I'm starting my own private detective agency. Yeah, I would watch that, actually.
That's what he needs to make.
Yep. Earn a D&D badge at Cub Scouts.
That's cool.
It is cool. So Cub Scouts in
Hey,
the UK...
wait a second. Where the fuck was this?
What?
When I was a fucking Cub Scout.
I can hear somebody talking. Is
So-
that, that's your wife, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
That's all right. it's
Don't
not
worry
coming
about
up
it.
on the mic.
Yeah, exactly, James. So Cub Scouts in the UK, I think they're called Cub Scouts in America. We just call it Cubs here. But they give out various badges for completing tasks like fishing, fighting, glue sniffing. But now you
Helping
can
an
get...
old lady across the road.
That's true, right? Or
Pushing her into the road.
pushing her into traffic. I mean, they're very diverse.
I was a Cub Scout.
But yeah, so was I, actually, for a very short amount of time, and then realised I have no physical attributes, and as a result, I stopped.
Do you remember what you was before Cubs?
Yeah, Beaver.
Beavers. Yeah.
Beavers.
Yes, mate. I was the trio. I went to Beavers, Cubs, and then Scouts.
Nerd.
I didn't go
Loved it.
Scouts.
No, actually,
went to Cubs.
I realised I only actually did beavers. And I remember doing one camping trip and being like, no, this ain't for me. There's no toilet. And I remember it's just so weird. It was like so much of it was... Oh, no, I can't really say that. But it was like... It was really terrible. I think the only thing I remember is trying to make a pancake on top of a can. Do you remember that? You'd use a hollowed out can.
That's the experience, though, isn't it? Really?
What, rubbish and low budget.
Yeah, that's what you're there for.
But anyway, one of the badges in Cub Scouts you can earn is an entertainer badge. So if you perhaps put on a comedy night for the rest of your Cub Scout people. But there's a variant of it now. If you run a D&D game for your Scouts, you can get this badge. And it's got the image of the Harlequins, their two masks for the... For the image, but it's got D&D written on it too, so it's a variant on the entertainer badge, and that's pretty.
I was about
fucking
to
cool.
say, okay, so they have actually updated it and not just used that badge and said, yeah, go on, it's a D&D badge now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
pretty cool, and that
That's sweet.
I like that because I think it's a good thing to bring the hobby to more kids, because they're going to grow up and start playing these games. So I think it's good to get more kids into the hobby. I think sometimes it can be a bit overly complex and a bit boring for kids, but if you've got them running it for your mates at Cub Scouts, I think it's a good idea.
Definitely. Question.
Go on.
Is it exclusive to D&D in order to get the badge?
The unfortunate thing is it's got Dungeons and Dragons specifically written on it, so you can't go there and run Fatal, Nick.
But I mean, come on. Why can't you have? If you maybe if you run a Call of Cthulhu one, you could have cock on it.
Oh no, Nick.
I meant COC.
You silly boy. You stupid man.
Got a cock badge at Scouts.
What? You're never going there again, Jimmy. That is it for news, lads. So, good week, really. I mean, Sort it out, Dark Trails, all right?
All right. I'm off to get my D&D badge.
I'm going down the local Cub Scouts to get my D&D badge. But you can't, you're 32 years old. Shut up, Arcala.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I forgot they were named after the Jungle Book.
Do you remember what the little things, you know those
The little things.
neckerchiefs?
Oh, I know.
You know what the thing that you use to tie them up is called?
Of course.
What's it called, Nick?
A toggle.
Well, that's the funny thing, because I remember when we were kids, it was called a woggle. Isn't that terrible?
A woggle? I thought it was a toggle. I'm sure it's a toggle.
I'm fairly certain it's a woggle.
Is it? Oh, maybe I'm wrong then. I have to check.
It's pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember that weird
I think
little tie
they
thing.
probably changed it.
Yeah, because it's not like a tie, is it? It's just like a handkerchief rolled up.
Yeah,
with
it
like a
is.
little
It's like a
tube
slightly,
around
a little bit longer hanky. And it's actually not. It goes against health and safety rules, mate. You could choke someone with that.
And I have.
Are they
Tut-tut.
Are they still in service? Them things, or have they like updated it for a health and safety era? We have to dip back into Cubs.
Yeah. We'll have to go there to go run a D&D game, do a full report on it.
Yeah, yeah. We have to get our badges.
I'll just go there pretending to be a child.
We just dress up as kids.
All right. It's to run a game of D&D.
That need me badge.
Right, no fucking swearing.
But yeah, that's it for news. Let's get on to what we've been playing
Yes.
with what you've been slaying.
Why? That was like low energy, man.
All right, let's do that. So that was it for news. Let's get on to what we've been playing. How's that?
Oh yes.
Woohoo!
This is a wild ride, ladies and gentlemen.
This is
What
what
is
we.
going on?
This is what we've needed.
And one of these. Oi, yeah. What you slaying?
So we finished up our Planescape. Can't really call it a campaign because it was only 5 episodes long, but essentially
Mini.
we've been playing a little Planescape game where these guys were on Sigil, which is the neutral plane in the centre of all of the other sort of afterlives in that. And the guys kind of woke up with a bunch of scars on them, things like this, and they were told that they worked for an organisation called the Collectors, who provided the services going throughout the planes and retrieving items for people that they might have lost or mislaid or something like this. And their boss, it turns out, now we've come to the end of this arc of it, basically their boss actually cursed them. They woke up without any of their memories, and it turns out their boss had done it. And also all of their clients, up until now, was their boss sort of changing shape and assuming different forms. And the reason he was getting them to go to all these dangerous places and gather these items was to build up an armory of stuff in order to take down the Lady of Pain, who's this...
Yeah, that's a pretty big twist.
I thought it was kind of cool. But the Lady of Pain is basically this, never talking, omnipotent god who kind of oversees Sigil, the neutral plane, and disallows any gods from coming in. Turns out the Lady of Pain had killed their boss's wife, and so he'd manipulated a bunch of people into working for him and gathering these items and things like this. So yeah, that was basically where we left it. First of all, Nick, what did you think of the setting, Planescape? Now we've delved a little bit more into it.
I love it. Yeah, I love Planescape. I mean, we had a little go in Planescape some years back, and it was fun. And this one was a lot more. Well, we was a lot more grounded in this one, weren't we? Because then last time we ventured into Planescape, we was it Planescape? It was
Planescape, but you guys were quite high level in that one.
And we were hopping between worlds and stuff. Whereas in this one, it was a very different situation. It felt like we was confined to Sigil for the most part, and then we was in like a really rough part of town, so it had like a kind of, I don't know, Lankmar feel to it a bit.
It did, yeah.
And it was cracking, mate. I loved it.
It was a city campaign, really, and the thing about it is that Sigil is often called the cage because it's very difficult to get out of. And actually, I kind of wanted... There was going to be plane hopping and stuff like this, but you have to remember it's quite hard to do. So in the 5 episodes we played, the guys actually only did it once and went to the chaotic neutral plane called the Grey Wastes.
But that was really, really interesting, that was. I do think that if if we do revisit it, it will be so much better in person.
That's one of the troubles I found. This is kind of the reason I cut the campaign a little bit short, is because I think it kind of relies a little bit, the setting, because even just the map of it is quite complicated, being that Sigil, the main city that you guys are in, is on a ring. So you can kind of go two separate ways and end up in the same place. So it's really bizarre like that, and the map is being constantly rebuilt by Debuts, who are these like floating goat heads that work for the Lady of Pain. So the thing is, one of the central aspects of it is when a part of the city dies, it just gets built over within like half a day, and so you could go down the same street and experience something completely different. And kind of having a map there really helps with that. Just simply, and it's the same with the map of the planes themselves and where Sigil sits. It kind of has this really cool cosmology to it, and it really needs maps, I feel, and for people to do a bit of mapping, because you could have a quest entirely based around the fact that you're just going home and suddenly the layout has completely changed and you're going down dark alleyways fighting people. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's certain large aspects of the setting that didn't work entirely with Theatre of the Mind. Additionally, it's as I said to you guys the other day, we just finished a long 3-arc campaign where you guys were nearly at maximum level, you know, and it felt a bit of a shame going back to starting from nothing in a city where everything hates you again. Do you know what I mean? In a fantasy setting.
Yeah.
And so I was just hungry to do something completely different. So, we're finishing that off, and we're gonna play Tough Guys, which is the expansion to Wise Guys.
Oh yes,
really looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too, man. So for those that don't know, this is a London 90s gangster setting that Nick and I worked on, and it should be really fun, I think, because it's very British, very 90s, and it's, you know, gangster stuff. I wanted something, because Planescape is so high concept and so weird, I wanted something that everyone could just get straight away. Yeah, that wouldn't suffer from not needing maps, because it's set in London, where we all nearly live by.
Exactly. Pretty much.
And we all know it. We all grew up as you know, we're all roughly the same age range, and it's all something that we're familiar with. So it should be something that's a right laugh, I think.
I reckon it'll be really fun and somewhat nostalgic. Because it's set in the 90s.
Yes, exactly.
What you have to remember as well is that the 90s, like, people look back on the 80s and think it was cool, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, but nobody has ever gone, God, I love the 90s. I mean, the music was awful, the fashion was terrible. Do you know what I mean? And so that's, I think that's going to be a source of comedy, and B, like, because think about it. Think about what was in the charts at the time. You're going to have these hard nut gangsters being, oh, I love the So Solid Crew.
Or listening to Five.
Yeah, listening to Five, or Ronan Keating and Boyzone and shit.
911. And it's like, I need to get home, Blind Dates on, and then Gladiators.
yeah, totally. I mean, and yeah, one of the kind of setting rules, well, it's not really a setting rule, but it's an edge you can take at character creation where you can be a made man. So in Wise Guys, for which Tough Guys is an expansion, one of the edges is that you can, I should mention it's Savage Worlds, but yeah, as a made man, what it means is you're of Italian heritage and you're officially part of the mafia. And what that gives you various perks, but that means other characters are associates. So you don't work directly for the mafia, but they often call you up to do jobs, and you've got a good relationship with them, you know. So it's like you could just be a small-time drug dealer who buys off the mafia and then kicks up some of the profits of what he sells, you know, something like that. So, but Nick has decided to be a made man in the Tough Guys setting.
Yeah.
The big difference is that in British gangs, it's not about heritage. It's more, if you want to be a part of at least one of the white gangs, you have to either know them since you're a kid or be related. That's kind of what it is. So, yeah, we created Nick's character. We still got the others to make, but Nick is going to be a made man, which means, A, he never has to pay for clothes. He's always well dressed. He never has to get a reservation at a restaurant because people know him and they just sit him down. Mm-hmm. He only kicks up 25% of his profits instead of 50%, and he gets the benefit of Streetwise and a free social edge, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, mate.
It's one of the better edges in the book, to be fair. It's pretty powerful. But yeah, you're playing. Describe your character to us, Nick.
Well, my name's Mickey Jackpot Duggar, and I'm a ex-semi-professional darts player. That's not well. He's high life in the dart game is over, and he's still quite addicted to the rock and roll lifestyle of the '90s dart scene, or early '90s, late '80s, should I say? And he's got family in the gang, in the Holloway firm, and his new job is that he's been given the title of area boss, which he's got no experience in doing, but he's always got a pint in his hand. He's nasty with a set of darts, and he's a pretty hard fella.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's pretty cool because one of the things you have to do in Wise Guys is you have to give your character a redeeming quality, something that humanises them. For example, I played a Black Elvis impersonator once, and he had a kid that he was trying to get custody of again, in addition to being in the gang lifestyle. Nick's character is this fucking hard nut, but he's also a retiree. He retired from darts, and so he joined a flower arranging club, and he's sort of like the only man there, and he always buys all the biscuits, and he treats those women with the utmost respect. He's like, don't you fuck with old Gladys, mate.
They're my treasures, they are. Deirdre.
Tulips.
Yeah.
Because I said to Nick, it's a really weird phenomenon, isn't it, that flower arrangers and gardeners, they're either posh or really cockney, and I don't know why that is.
It's one or the other.
Do you ever watch Gardener's World?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so on that, there's like the main guy, Monty Don, who's like...
Monty Don.
I'm just cutting my flowers. But then the other guy's like, I'm planting my fucking strawberries. Right, these are beautiful, son. And it's
Get it, fucking pigeon.
So believe it or not, Nick's redeeming quality does actually fit with the Cockney thing. They love flowers. Don't know why.
I don't know why.
Because they're beautiful.
Because they're beautiful, yeah. So I'm really, really excited. It was a blast making this fella, and I must say, from the get go, he's pretty well statted. So I'm hoping, just worked out quite well for everything. So looking forward to seeing the rest of the guys.
Yeah, me too. And they're all going to be working directly for you, which is pretty cool. I think it's going to be fun, and I wanted to play something cathartic. Like something that gives you a bit of a release, where you're going around kicking down doors, smashing heads in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also because of theatre of the mind and less areas to think of, it would be a lot easier to track.
And I'm really excited. It's going to be fun. We'll report back on it next session. Very last thing in what we've been saying, because it's RPG related, I finished Cyberpunk 2077 and absolutely loved it. It is a fantastic game. And but having read all of the Cyberpunk RPG books now, the sheer amount of references, even to tiny little things in the RPG books, it's just absolutely incredible. It's just that they've got kind of every detail down. Even like we talked about Cyberpunk Red, the latest version, that the city, or at least the city centre, is hit by a nuke, and that's what changes it into the Cyberpunk Red setting. And the origin and how the nuke happened, you see it played out in the game. I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but in the video game, it's like
that's
you see
cool.
it, and it's amazing. And the characters are so fantastically written. The setting is great. And
the creator's involved, isn't he? The creator's involved in the video game.
Yeah, he said that he was sort of like heavily consulted on for it, and they even would like run decisions by him, like, we want to kill this character, and he was like, no, I had exactly the same idea in mind, and stuff like this. So
does that come through though? Does that really come through in the game?
It seems to me, because it's got the exact same attitude as the books, and it's got a level of detail where you can tell he must have been involved in some big way.
I like the fact that he was heavily consulted, because as we mentioned last time, it's like his birth child. He said that this is exactly how he would have created it himself in his closet if he had the tech to do it way back when he first wrote it. So it's so awesome that he's he has had such a part in it, and you knowing the RPGs can actually see it in there.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because I was reading the RPGs while I was playing the game, and then I'd be like, that's a really cool location, I'll have to put that into the tabletop version when I play it. And then I'd get a mission, it'd be like, we're going here. And it's like this tiny pub that's mentioned in one paragraph in the book. It's like, fuck it. I'm like, this is crazy, the amount of detail.
That's nice.
But I will say, yeah, having finished it, the story's fucking amazing. It's really good. Great acting, great atmosphere. And I played it on PS4, and it's still fucking good.
Do you want to just tell us about the very last bit?
Yeah, and the non-spoiler part.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, what happened was, I finally got to the end of the game, right, and I'd encountered minimal glitches throughout it, right, but then there's this scene right at the end of the game, really emotional scene. I would just say this, it involves a character sitting on a bus, right, and the character sits on the bus, and then for some reason the shirt she's wearing also appeared behind her on the seat behind her, but it was doing all the same action she was as she was doing everything. So the emotional ending was somewhat ruined by the fact that behind her was a ghostly shirt moving around.
But you've been pretty lucky apart from that, so not too bad, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, a couple of glitches I encountered were, relating to my car hitting me when I called it and quests not starting, but I just reloaded the game and it was fine. Yeah. Probably the best glitch was that there's this club called the Afterlife, right? And you visit it maybe 15 times throughout the game. And at one point I encountered a glitch when I came out of the Afterlife where there was a car floating in midair.
Yeah.
And with these games, right, usually when you go out of an area, it unloads whatever's there. And then obviously it will spawn new cars, new people when you go there to save memory. For some reason, that car stayed there through the whole game. So every time I went back to the Afterlife, there was a car floating 5 feet off the ground outside. No idea why.
Just became a feature.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I saw it, and at one point I was like, I've got to get that car down. That's really annoying me. And so I tried blowing it up, and it was still there. Tried to get in it and drive it. It's still there. Yep. Never mind.
Very good.
But that said, it's worth playing, even with all that. But I've gone on too much about it. So, let's get into the main subject, shall we, lads?
Yes, let's do it.
Oh, yes.
Main. Subject. Magic. Main. Subject.
Tokyo.
Main. Subject.
All right. So, we're talking about micro RPGs now. All right.
All right.
Tiny little RPGs.
Micro.
We're talking about no. So here's the dizzle. Micro RPGs often one page or a couple of pages. I used to kind of turn my nose up at them and be like, whatever, just play a normal game. But we'll say this: we played one recently, and it was a lot of fun. And it's a really great way of playing a one-shot, considering it doesn't take that much prep and character creation is often very quick. We'll talk about more our experience and why we think we need micro RPGs, but we're just gonna we've all picked a couple and we're gonna sort of go through them now and sort of it's a pick of a few ones that we think are worth playing. If you've got a spare week or if you just want to have a break from the big campaign for a day, some of these are actually going to be really fucking fun to play. So, yeah, should we do it, lads?
Let's do
Yes. Let's do it.
Alright, so the first one I chose is Gnome Murdered by RPG Pundit. Now, I know he's a controversial figure, but I just wanted to talk about the game, alright? So, let me just read the intro to you guys before I get into what actually the game is. And the intro goes like this. I hate gnomes with every fibre of my being. Gnome. Gnome. The very word is steeped in hideousness. The silent G stands for evil. There is no force in this world more malevolent that can so effectively strike fear, disgust, and hatred into the heart of any decent human being. What kind of man would not have anything less than the deepest feeling of revulsion for these bald-bearded bastards? So, this is Gnome Murdered, lads. And the thing is, I've sort of bent the rules a little bit. Sorry about that. It is a micro RPG because the rules actually only comprise about 2 pages, but it is a published book. Everything else in the book, apart from the first 2 pages, is optional content. That's what it says.
All right.
But it isn't free. That's one of the big problems with it. Here's the basic idea of the game, right? The setting, it can take place in any setting you like. But it has to involve gnomes, obviously. The basic premise is that you create a character simply by taking an index card, writing a descriptor on there. So you might say bank manager with a drinking habit, right? Then you roll a d6. On a 1 to a 3, you are killed by gnomes. On a 4 to a 6, you succeed at what you were trying to do. So the idea is that you're only ever supposed to roll when the possibility of being killed by gnomes is there. Everything else just happens.
Nice.
But that's up to the GM. You can make it. Anything could be you killed by gnomes. It could be you go to make a cup of tea. The GM's like, there's a little gnome in the pot of tea bags.
It pops out his little head.
He just goes,
Oi, what you doing? You're boiling me.
Yeah, so that is pretty much it. That's the game. It said it's the ultimate rules light RPG, and I don't know about that, but here's the funny thing. I'm going to go into some of the alternate rules here, right? It says if you don't have dice available, flip a coin, because essentially that is the mechanic anyway. Yeah. But also, you can do a contest of strength. You can either arm wrestle or have a wrestling match with the GM to determine if you get killed by gnomes.
physical one.
Which I think is really fucking cool. You can also play Trivial Pursuit, so you get a deck of Trivial Pursuit cards and have to answer questions. And if you get one wrong, then you are killed by gnomes.
Right.
Right.
Another method is group therapy, where you sit down and tell you how each scene of the game made you feel. And I'm not entirely sure when you decide who gets killed by gnomes, but that I think it's a joke.
Okay.
So there's expansions on the game, as I mentioned as well, like for actual rules. So that you can kind of you can have a system where instead of just describing your character, you also give them a quality. So it's like, here's a quality for your character that means they get a bonus when they act in that quality. So if they're brave, for example, and it requires them to be fearless, then you get a bonus.
Okay.
And you also start with a unique item, unique to your character as well. That's pretty much it for expanded character rules. But the game also comes with a extended bit of gnome lore, which basically tells you about the origins of gnomes and things like this, which is also written in kind of a funny way.
Okay.
And the very last thing is it's got 3 mini settings, including one based on Murder, She Wrote called Murder, She Gnome. It's very clever. Yeah, and there's also different power levels of play, which it gives you advice on, but it doesn't change the rules in any way. So it does mention you could play superheroes, right? So even if you're playing on Superman, level of superheroes, if you're fighting... I don't know anything about Superman, but if you're fighting a really big bad guy, right, that's super powerful, that can destroy cities, in the middle of the fight, you roll to succeed in fighting, but you're still killed by gnomes. It doesn't matter that fight is going on. The gnomes are still involved in some way.
Embarrassing. That's so embarrassing for Superman.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just suddenly you're in the middle of this fight and they're like,
Oh, hey.
It's almost like a bolt onto any other game, isn't it? So you could do like a one shot with its own kind of story, if you like, but then you throw this kind of could die by a gnome mechanic.
Well, they call it a gnome murdered role, hence the name of the game. So you could, you just play a normal game of D&D, but if there's a situation that comes up where you might be killed by gnomes, do a gnome murdered role. Or wrestle the GM to the ground.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I do like how tongue-in-cheek it is.
I did think about actually playing it that way one day, but I remember once when Nick, you tried to show us a kick from your kung fu days during a game, and the amount of creaking and cracking your body did, it's not up for the wrestling, I don't think.
Mate, no, I can't do
Killed
that
by
again.
gnomes.
That was killed by gnomes. Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically it. There's the last bit is a table of gnome mutations, meaning that if you're near a gnome, you can get mutated into various things, and gnome loot, most of which is underwear. So
Fucking dirty pervert.
bastards.
yeah, exactly.
Bum-bearded
That's what
bastard.
it is. That's no murdered, guys. I mean, it is really fucking basic. The whole thing's written in a fairly funny way, and it's tongue-in-cheek. I don't really think it's actually meant to be played, but if you were in the pub and you ordered a game that lasts an hour, this would be a great one to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so too.
I mean, you are going to be dying every 30 seconds, so that's the trouble. But character creation is pretty simple. Just write a new one down. For some reason, I was watching a documentary about truckers the other day, and I imagined doing a trucking, trying to get to like a safe haven while gnomes are after you. And I imagined like making almost everything you do a gnome murdered role. So it's like, sun's in your eyes, you put the visor down. Right, there's a gnome in there. He jumps out, starts clawing at your eyes.
yeah. You get a flat tire and you have to do a tire change on the highway, and then there's a gnome in the spare tire.
As you get out of the truck, you see a gnome with its knife in your wheel.
Yeah, you put your hand in your bag of crisps. There's a gnome in there eating them already.
He's holding one big one like a sheet of paper.
You get pulled over by the police, and you're looking into the mirror, waiting for the officer to turn up, and it's a gnome in like aviator glasses and a cop outfit.
You know you're doing 70 and a 50 there.
All right, that was my first pick. No Murdered. Don't know if it's worth it because it cost me actually a tenner to buy, and I'm guessing that all the other ones we're going to talk about here are free. But Nick, what's your first pick, son?
My first pick is Honey Heist. Some of our listeners may have heard of this. Some people have
where we did talk about it last episode.
Oh, and that too. So obviously, yeah, perfect. So well, let me start with the premise. So it's HoneyCon 2017. You are going to undertake the greatest heist the world has ever seen. Two things. One, you have a complex plan that requires precise timing. Two, you are a goddamn bear.
Yes.
That's the premise for the whole thing.
Nice.
It's a micro RPG. It consists of one page of well, if you get the original one, it's actually handwritten, which makes it even cuter because it looks like it's that kind of written on the back of a napkin thing.
Yeah.
We should start doing that. Sell
like
micro RPGs on napkins. It has a dual
new thing,
use.
just a whole pack of napkins with different games on, and it's really 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 simple. So there's only 2 roles in the whole game. You roll either bear or criminal. So if you're doing something that's criminal related or part of this complex plan, then you will roll criminal. And if you are doing something bear like, i.e., scratching, climbing, roaring, you will roll your bear roll. That is it. You start off with obviously character creation, pretty straightforward. You have a descriptor, you have your bear type, each bear type has like a special ability. So as an example, grizzly comes with terrifying. If you're a sun bear, you can sense honey anywhere, which is pretty handy. If you're a honey badger, which I know isn't a bear, I didn't write this, you get the carnage. You get the carnage perk. So you get a little bit of trappings to each class, if you like, and then you have a role. So you're either the muscle, the brains, the driver, the hacker, the thief, or the face. So and you're all bears, exactly that, and you all can have a hat, which is pretty cool. And so it starts off with this complex plan that you have, and the GM has a few tables that they can roll on. Again, it's all randomly generated from tables of where the HoneyCon is being kept. Held, sorry. What's the type of the organizer? What the organizer's like? Our one was that we played. He had an obsession with honey. You have security features, so is HoneyCon armed guards there? Has it got electrically locked gate, CCTV network, all this kind of stuff? And then also there's like a twist as well. Little do the bears know, and then obviously that's for the GM to know, and obviously for the bears to find out when they hatch their plan. That's about it, really. I mean, the twists are pretty cool. I mean, the cops are en route. Look, a rival team of bears.
Nice.
They've been set up.
So
the prize is fake.
Add in these twists sort of as and when you feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, you can have one already kind of planned, and then obviously you could kind of change as it goes if it's required.
Nice.
You can throw a bit more in, I suppose, depending on how the bears are getting on. And there's also not only the honey, obviously, that they're going to steal. There's also like an extra prize. So the one that we were going for in our game was the Queen of all bees, one that once exiled, now returned, and that was the prize they were going for. And that is pretty much it, boys. I mean,
so tell me about how you lose or die in the game, because I think that's one of the important rules.
Yeah, so that's quite an interesting one. So every time you start off with 3 points in bear and 3 points in criminal. Every time you make a roll, depending whether it's criminal or bear, you then move a point from that. So for example, if you roll in for criminal and you succeed, then you will then take a point out of bear and put it into criminal. Yep. If you ever get to 6 points on either bear or criminal, the game is over for you. You don't die in this game. You essentially, if you go 6 points in criminal, you become a full-time criminal and basically betray the gang. And if you get 6 points in bear, you become feral and run off back into the woods.
Yeah, I quite like.
Yeah,
So it's a kind of point management game. It's kind of point management as well. So you have to be mindful of how beary you're being or how criminally you're being, because I think Sean actually didn't he nearly go full criminal, if I remember right.
He almost did, yeah, my brother, and he he basically just said, like he was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this other criminal thing, and you're like, are you sure? Because you're gonna just become a hardened criminal and be out of the game. But I like that because it means that you're always trying to balance things out, and it sort of mitigates players just doing really cool criminal shit constantly, and it means that the chaos of being a bear is going to happen because you have to.
It's
And
quite good as well.
Such a
Because when we were playing it, there was a couple of times when, say, for instance, we tried to do a criminal role, but whilst we were doing that, we wanted to fail so that the point went into bear instead. Because obviously, if you fail on the role you're trying to do, then the points move the opposite way. And so, there was a couple of times we were like, I know, but I have to try this, but I just hope I fail so that my points
It's risky,
a bit more leveled out.
Exactly. Or the flip side to that, if you remember as well, the greed is when everything goes to plan, it's great, but obviously you're then putting points from bear into criminal. So succeeding has its consequences as well, if you like.
Totally.
So you have to keep an eye on your numbers. So even though it's 2 roles in the whole game and 2 stats you've got to track, you've still got to keep an eye on them. So that's what I do like. There is that kind of extra level of, it's a micro RPG, sure, but still there is little nuances to it that makes it interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's such a great premise that it's just bloody fun. You're gonna have a good time.
Exactly.
People get the chance to act like a bear or a criminal in a game, both of which are going to be extremely cathartic and fun. It's a really, really silly premise, but that's what makes it, mate. Because you can get away with that in a micro RPG. Just play one off while you're a bear.
What's underneath? What's underneath? If we dig down, what's underneath? A network of tunnels, a network of funnels, a funny little goblin guy.
But let's talk about something completely unoriginal. Do you want to? Should we have a little chat about Carly Rae Jepsen?
If we must.
Judging by your reaction, do you remember this is the girl that did? Hey, I just met you. It's bloody mental.
This is crazy.
Yeah, that's the
Here's
one.
my number.
Yeah, everyone
So
knows.
call me maybe. Yeah,
everyone knows
I know that
who.
one.
Shut up, will you? Christ. Sorry. So everyone knows who Carly Rae Jepsen is, right? Because of that song. And for some reason, guys, and a reason I can't fathom at all, people like her music. Now, when pop musicians make albums, right, a lot of songs end up on the cutting room floor. And in the case of Carly Rae Jepsen, it's believed that she made over 200 in the course of making her last 2 albums.
What?
Now, I couldn't find any evidence for this, except for the fact that Carly Rae Jepsen said it once in an interview. I don't know if there's any actual evidence of this happening, but the game we're about to speak about, though, is actually based on this supposed fact that somewhere, perhaps in the vault of some big record company, is a collection of unreleased Carly Rae Jepsen music. That's right, so this micro RPG goes by the name of Boy Problems, named after one of Carly Rae Jepsen's songs. And this, as I mentioned, is unoriginal, right? It's not new mechanics because it's an adaptation of the sci-fi micro RPG Lasers and Feelings. And basically, the story behind it is this: it's the future. Someone wealthy has the 200 unreleased songs, and you play people hired to raid the highly defended location of the songs and retrieve them. So to make a character is pretty easy. First, you choose a style for your character, so something like charismatic, brooding, bumbling, or sexy. Then you choose your role in the heist. Similar to Honey Heist, you've got things like Driver, the Muscle, the New Kid. And then what you do, your stats, you just choose a number, right? So you choose a number between 2 and 5. A higher number means you're better at swords, while a lower number means you're better at emotions. And it's written it's written Emotions because that's the name of one of Carly Rae Jepsen's albums.
Fuck.
I know, this one's a bit cringe, I've got to be honest with you. We'll sort of talk about our thoughts about it when we get to the end here. But so next you give your character a cool code name like Axel or Blaze or Zangief. And then you get a bonus item depending on the role you choose. So, example, if you're the fixer, you get a laser blowtorch, whereas the inside man gets a map of the facility you're raiding. Then you pick a goal for your character and make your getaway vehicle as a group. So, the vehicle, everyone sort of chimes in and says what they want it to be. And you pick a strength and a weakness. So, you could have like a nimble car, but the weakness is that it's really noisy. You could have a hover van with superior sensors, but it's prone to breaking down, etc., etc.
That's good.
It is quite good. But yeah, when you want to do something, right, you roll a d6 and you roll an additional d6 if what you're doing is in your area of expertise, and a further d6 if you're also prepared for the situation. If you're using swords, you want to roll under the number you chose earlier, so it's like anything physical basically. And if you're using emotions, you want to roll over the number. So that's where picking the number comes in, because if you want to be better at swords, you'll obviously pick a higher number. If you want to be better at emotions, like talking to people, bribing people, all of this stuff, you want a lower number. The number of successes you get in your dice pool indicates how well the task goes. So you kind of want to prepare and want to use things within your wheelhouse. If you get 1 success, you scrape by. If you get 3, that's a crit and you get an extra effect. And if you get 2, it's just, slightly better. But if you hit your number exactly, you get a cut to the feeling roll. And I think that might be a Carly Rae.
The feeling roll.
Oh no, mate.
Is that a song?
I think it's a song, yeah. It must be. I will say this, just to try and... Because before we continue with the game, I don't understand what it is, but there's, for some reason, perfectly normal people, and loads of people I know, and love Carly Rae Jepsen, and I had to listen to her music while I was reading this and writing the review. I can't for the life of me. It's just the same trashy, plastic, regurgitated pop music that you would hear anywhere. It's no different to Katy Perry or Britney Spears or one of these people. I don't get it. It must be a meme.
It's so fucked up how, like, someone like this, who I don't consider to be, a famous artist, realistically. She was a one-hit wonder and maybe released some more music. But how has she got such a cult following? So much so that someone's redone Lasers and Feelings for her.
That's what I don't get. Because I'm fairly certain it's an ironic thing. Because I see, like, like it's with like My Little Pony people, how it's like, bronies, we're big dude bros and we like this. It's like, I think that's what it is. It must be ironic, because I can't see any reason why you would like the music. It's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish.
God.
But yeah, anyway, so if you hit your number exactly, you get a cut to the feeling roll, and you can ask a question of the GM, gaining a special insight into the situation. Now, the very final thing is for the GM to roll up the heist. You do it by rolling or choosing from a number of examples. You pick a location, who's keeping the song, who hired the team to get the songs, and why this person wants the songs. For example, the songs could be locked in an art gallery or being kept by a wealthy business person. And the person who hired the team is a group of super CRJ fans. And they want the songs so that they can release them for free to the public. But the very final section of the book is all about betrayal. So as the product puts it, you need a betrayal to have a good heist. So you roll a d6 and compare it to this table, and it tells you who's loyal to who. So you might have a couple of players that are actually loyal to the wealthy bloke that owns the museum and are out to sabotage the mission. So you have to tell them in secret via text or whatever. Or you might have a player that's, loyal to a third faction entirely and wants to steal the songs for themselves. That's it, really. I mean, look, the problem with this is it reminds me of that Alan Partridge scene where they're talking about the mini Metro, and he's just like, they've rebadged it, you fool. That's all they've done. I mean, beyond naming things after Carly Rae Jepsen things, it has little to do with her music or anything. And if it really was about these sort of as the game is called, boy problems, if it was like about teenagerhood and boy problems and the type of things Carly Rae Jepsen actually sings about, I think it would be way more of a laugh than this crappy rebranding where the MacGuffin happens to be CRJ related. I think it is completely rubbish. Not to mention, not free either. It costs like $3 to get this turd, and it's just... Lasers and Feelings is a good game, and in fact, this is quite a good game. The only trouble is all they've done is just rebadge things with stupid names. That's all it is. It's a fucking waste of money.
I just realised, though, has any of us... We haven't played Lasers and Feelings, have we?
No, but I've read it, obviously.
Yeah, but I feel like, because it was mentioned way back in like one of the single-digit episodes. I do feel like it's about time we probably played it.
We owe it to Lasers and Feelings to play it. Yeah, we should do it.
Yeah.
Why, but not this version? Or play the proper version?
No, we'll play the proper one.
The original, thank you very much. It's fucking CRJ can go fuck a duck.
Thanks, James. Anyway, yeah, I don't like the game. I think it's stupid. And yeah, don't really bother. Just get Lasers and Feelings. It's free and better, and it's based on a pretty funny song. So, Nick, what's your next one, buddy?
Next one, I have got another humdinger from Grant Howitt, and this time we've got Adventure Skeletons.
Enough said. Moving on.
Right.
No, go on.
So here we go. You are a skeleton, bored of being told to guard some boring old dungeon by a wizard. So, you dress up in some kit you found on a corpse and set off to the human dungeon, or village as they call it, for an adventure. Your adventuring goals are to slay villains, get cool treasure, and perform legendary deeds.
I'm in.
Nice.
So that's it. You're a bunch of skeletons. Your normal day job is that you're guarding a dungeon for a wizard, as normal, and you get a bit bored of that with you and your skeletal mates, and decide to go off on your own adventure.
So it's like reverse D&D.
Yeah.
I have a question though, because I've been playing my Christmas present that you got me, James. Yeah. I've been playing Icewind Dale on the Nintendo Switch.
Nice.
And it's based on the the D&D rules and stuff. Great game, really fucking great game. I'm sorry to derail you here, Nick, but
no, not at all.
One of the first dungeons in the game, right? You're fighting a bunch of skeletons, and I just had a thought. Bring the wise words of Ali G. Why are all skeletons evil?
Well, that's it. I mean, if you're made to guard a dungeon all day,
yeah, I know. Fair point.
Sick of their job,
and that's
sick
of the job.
Overworked, underpaid.
Sick of it. For fuck's. Yeah. Anyway, carry on, Nick. Adventure Skeletons. What's the dizzle?
No worries. So yeah. So first of all, we start off with picking basically what type of Skeletor you are. So you have ancestry. So you can, I guess, you can roll a d6 and do it randomly, or you can pick if you've got some people. But I just go through the ancestry of skeletons. So you could be an orc skeleton. You get a +1 to hitting and shouting. You can be an elf skeleton, get +1 to speaking and moving. You can be a dwarf one, which is your head and chest to get an extra hitbox. Very nice. Goblin, +1 to sneak in and run away. Human, detach a body part to re-roll a skill check. Or you could be an ancestral skeleton, so you've always been a skeleton. And you get +1 to skeleton
brilliant.
knowledge and culture.
Well,
So-
James, when two skeletons love each other very much, the stork comes along.
Exactly. So once you've figured out what your ancestry is, your next part is that you have an equipment table. So you just roll twice. Again, it's on the d6. You get leather armor, metal armor, a scimitar, a dagger, a great axe, or bow and arrows. Very good fun.
Nice.
And then next up, we determine what the human dungeon's dark secret is. A bit of a theme with Mr. Howitt. He likes a table, gives you a bit of filler, makes the GM's life a bit easier. So again, we roll a table. Some of them on there harbouring a murder cult, imprisoning a bunch of innocent skeletons in a basement. Not on. None of them have skeletons. They're all outsider pod people in disguise. You know.
Is the human
kind of stuff.
dungeon just like a village?
Well, precisely that, mate. So yeah,
That's brilliant.
That's another table. So you can have a vibrant farming hamlet. You can have a busy crossroad with an inn and a river, a monastery and library, a mage's college, a shady river port, or a seaside resort.
Seaside resort. I just imagine
Sounds
Eastbourne, man.
Yeah, exactly. All the skeletons.
Bunch of
coming
skeletons
down to
rolled
Eastbourne.
up, start popping beach balls.
We have obviously we need a goal, so some treasure for the skeletons to find. Again, it's another table, so we can you can be after a bag of gold and gems, a magic scimitar, magic armor, invisibility cloak, potion of repair, hat of subterfuge. So you've got some cool magical items there as well, quite interesting. We'll get onto the mechanics because this is fun. So it's very straightforward. So basically, when someone attacks you, they hit automatically. If anyone comes at you or your skeleton guys, they're always going to hit because you're slow, you're a skeleton. And what you have to do is you roll a d10 on the hit location table, which is basically just a picture of a skeleton with all of his body parts labelled. And then obviously depending on what the roll is determines how much damage that part takes, and they all have their own individual hit points, and when it gets to maximum hit points, that part comes off.
Nice. So by the end of the adventure, you could just be like an arm and a head dragging its way on.
Yep, precisely that. So yeah, and you so basically that's exactly it. Sorry, if a body part has no hitboxes remain, it's broken. So they can detach, but as long as they're not broken, you can reattach them. If they're completely broken,
awesome.
you can't put them back on again. So if a body part comes off, you can stick it back on. If it breaks or you lose it, you can replace it with any other bone you find on your travels. You can have a non-bone replacement at a time that must be of an appropriate size and shape. So you can also have something that's a bit random, like a barrel for a chest or a tree branch for a leg.
I'm
That's really
imagining
cool.
now, like, if you were able to use any bones you find along the way,
Oh, right.
I'm imagining a skeleton who's had his legs chopped off, but he's found like a cat skeleton, and he's got 2 tiny legs where his ones used to be.
Exactly.
I've got an image of a skeleton with arms all around, like in a star shape, and his head sits in his rib cage. So
That would be
it
fucking
just
awesome.
like flips around.
He just rolls.
I like the game says, fun fact, every human and most animals are full of bones, going almost entirely unused. so yeah, it's got a comedy flavour to it, and so that's your kind of hit points and hit location table, if you like. And then lastly we've got performing actions. So again, it's all D10. So you roll a D10 and it has to be equal to or beat the games master's target number. So again, it's just a little table, easy peasy. Easy task is 4, standard 6, challenging 8, and really difficult is a 10. Your roll is a -1 for each body part you're currently missing. So obviously if you're missing 2 legs, it's a -2.
That's why you've
so
only
on.
got 10 parts of the body that they've labelled, eh?
That's it, exactly. And then damaging humans and other things is if you hit roll on the location table to see where you hit, and if you roll your damage dice versus their toughness, and if you beat their toughness, you take them out of action. Simple as that.
Nice.
If not, lower their toughness. So if not, you just wear them down. If your head comes off and it's completely and it loses all of its hit points, that's when you're out, basically.
Okay.
Oh, okay. You're probably going to become useless before you die.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you just turned, all of your body parts, your body's been hit off.
Exactly.
Imagine that.
Yeah, but don't forget you got equipment. So
You just end up as Daniel, the skull.
Exactly.
Fucking
Yeah.
skull.
But how fun! Can you imagine having a group of like 4 or 5 skeletons all just in a like party adventuring, and
Can you
like,
morph
one
together?
of them's got an arm off? Well, I suppose up to the GM, I guess. But it's
That'd be hilarious. Imagine
just-
that. You're all instead, there's no arms. There's your mate's skulls there, and it's 3 of you inhabiting one body, and you're just legs running like.
It'd be so good.
And it's like fucking Power Rangers when the Megazords come together.
Oh, exactly, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
do you know what? It's I love how simple it is, but it's clearly quite hilarious. I'm just gonna paste in the chat quickly the skeleton because I think you'll quite like it. Look at his double thumbs up. So yeah, so that's the hit marker thing. Hit table.
That's funny. I like how
That's
sort of
brilliant.
crudely drawn it is. It's very very
yeah, it
basic
is all
drawing.
like very much to that style, isn't it? But it's brilliant. The guy's a genius for like small but still quite.
But I would love to
You know.
play an extended campaign of something like this. Like, instead of Saga of the Goblin Horde, Saga of the Skeleton Horde.
Oh, mate.
That would be so
What
good.
an idea.
Imagine having minions, not minions.
Like, I think they're
sorry.
like mooks or minions or whatever, but you get minions, but imagine if they were like, all, instead of skeletons, they were like animals.
little bat skeleton.
Yeah. Scree! Yeah, Adventure Skeletons. That one sounds awesome. I'm aware that we're sort of running a bit long on time. Let's discuss, real quick, what the merits of a micro RPG, because I think it's kind of took me by surprise. And in fact, I actually once made a micro RPG that was half a page that was made entirely to mock micro RPGs. If you recall, it was called Don't.
Oh yeah.
And it basically had no setting or anything, and it was just like, all I remember is that a critical success was called a success was called a do, a critical success was called a big do, and then obviously a crit failure was a big don't, and that's all I remember about it. But it was very stupid. But yeah, micro RPGs, man, I think they're the perfect thing if you need a quick one shot done and you're just up for bullshitting and drinking some beers. Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, totally. I think they're a really good introduction mechanism, if you like, to get people into the game as well, and that goes for GMs as well. Because what you might find is that people want to check the hobby out. They've got a group together, but they're a little bit nervous about GMing. And these type of intros are a really good way to kind of get your head around it. I think because they're so light, so funny, and you can enjoy it and get a feel for what RPGing is. That's what I think. I think they're really, really good little kind of gateway into the hobby.
That's a really, really good point. And I do think that, with newbies, it's often hard to get them to play because of what they think RPGs are really like. And a lot of people don't think you can just sit down and bullshit and have a fun game like this, like Adventure Skeletons. And I think that this is the type of one that you could break out with, say, your wife and her mates. You know what I mean? It's the only way you could get them into playing it.
These are the kind of ones where you try and sell D&D just by talking to someone who's has no idea what this is about. It's difficult to kind of keep them hooked, I think. Whereas this thing, you could literally just go, better yet, I'll show you. You're a bear and you're going to try and nick some honey. And I don't know, I just think it works a lot easier to sell it to someone.
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea as intro. I completely agree with that. And also, it's like a whole letting off steam bit. And because each of these micro RPGs, they can last less time than a full game of Monopoly. You know those can drag on. It's like it can be family board game time, and you just be like, all right, we're just going to do this because it gets people thinking outside the box a bit more instead of governed by a bunch of rules that some people when they're doing board games they'll be like, all right, what is this rule again? What's that again? And then you'll bog down. Takes the fun out of it. Whereas this is just depending on what micro RPG you pick up, it should just be naturally all fun. Because that's what they're designed to do.
You can realistically just read it 10 minutes before the game as well.
Exactly, There's like almost no setup.
And I agree with you, James. It's going to be much more fun than most board games to crack out and have a laugh. Do you know what I mean? Especially something like Honey Heist or Adventure Skeletons. These are like things you don't have to take seriously at all.
Exactly.
And I like the super light setup because recently at Christmas I got a game called Agricola. It's a board game. And it's like there's so many pieces. It's a very fun game. It's basically like a farming simulator, easiest way to put it. But it's a good game, but it's arduous to set up and take down. Whereas this, you can just be like, all right, give me just a sec. All right, sweet, let's play.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect. So, and I also think given current world events, sometimes you just need to let loose and have a laugh. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? With lockdown and stuff, like imagine if there's some people that haven't played RPGs before ever, but then they've used something like a micro RPG to just kind of liven up their virtual, meet up with their mates and having a pint. One of them's like, well,
100%.
Let's try this.
Yeah,
perfect.
I like the fact that it gives people an insight into our world because D&D has such a stigmatism. Like, oh, D&D, you're nerds. It's like, well,
yeah,
correct. Yeah, all right. Well, that is going to be it for the micro RPGs chat. We all obviously think you should go and try a few out, especially some of the ones we've mentioned today. But let's do some electro letters.
Ooh, okay, then.
In the future, you will be able to send a letter or parcel from anywhere on the planet. This, sir, is the electro letter.
All right, first one comes in from Yorkus Rex. Some of these questions, by the way, are left over from the last episode because we didn't have time to do them. Yorkus Rex, he says, what do you do when the futurist game you were playing 30 years ago catches up to the actual date and the writers got it all wrong as far as tech, politics, hairstyles, street gang warfare and everything? Do you treat it as an alternate timeline game, or do you arbitrarily add 57 years to the game's setting date and assume the players won't live long enough to see it's all wrong again?
Alternative.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mentioned this last episode, but the Cyberpunk game I'm running is set in the far future of 2020, like a couple of weeks ago. I like it. We mentioned last episode that both James and I love the retro futuristic style of Cyberpunk.
Oh yeah, completely.
Oh, me too.
Completely.
Yeah, because I mean, when you play Shadowrun and they thought money would be on cred sticks, and things like this, I just love it.
Low tech, high tech, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's things that haven't come true yet, and I often like the way they predicted technology they thought was going to be a real big hit, like video phones never really took off. I mean. Yeah, we're doing Zoom calls nowadays, but when you call your mate just to ask if he's on his way to the pub, you're not going to just go on video phone because most people don't want to get ready just to call their mate.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
that's right. Where's the robots that look after you and stuff? They're not here yet.
Well, they've got Roombas, but then
But yeah, but they just run over dog shit.
that's exactly what I was thinking about. God, that's so bad. The pictures of it makes me want to die. It's like all gummed up with turds.
Just spread it around the house.
It's the worst,
Yes,
isn't it?
I think if your future game is set in the past, which was previously the future, just keep it as it is. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's good
Yeah,
to be an
It's
alternate
good.
timeline.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Victor Ulansky, he says the world building of Cyberpunk 2077 is great, but after 100 hours invested in the game, it's getting grindy and repetitive. The level cap is so lame. Why would you do that in a single player game? Balance issues? What's the point? I don't think I've ever played a game except for Dark Souls for more than 100 hours. And yeah, that's why it'll get boring, because most games are actually quite shallow and they're designed to be completed in about half that time, if that.
Unless you're playing Zelda. I think I'm 100 hours in and I've not even done one Divine Beast yet.
Oh my god, you got to do one of those. Yeah, I mean, but then I've completed it twice, and I think my total playtime is about 60, 70 hours, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm not the type of person that goes around doing absolutely everything. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077, it's got these bloody stupid missions where it's a game about rebellion and gangs and, carving out your place in the city. But for some reason, one of the side missions, it's not really a mission, it's just something you can do to kill time, is that you can help the cops out with gang activity. And it's like, how the fuck does that fit into the setting? So I did one and was like, they've just populated a warehouse with people to shoot. That's all it is. I'm not going to bother with this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I did the main side quests, if they can be called such a thing, and the main story. That's all I did. And it was fucking great. If I'd have spent 100 hours on it too, I'd probably be bored by it. As for the level cap, I don't think I hit it, so I don't know what it is. But, I don't know, my character was pretty powerful by the end.
Nice.
Still, I'm not making excuses. A level cap is kind of dumb. Alright, next one comes in. Garrett Weinstein. He says Cyberpunk Red versus Sprawl Runners. Also, well, he's got another question about Cyberpunk 2020. But anyway, Cyberpunk Red looks good, is a great game, way too fucking expensive. Sprawl Runners is Manuel Sam's new setting that's basically Shadowrun, but not called Shadowrun for Savage Worlds. Yeah. And it's like fucking selling like hotcakes. I mean, the thing is, Nick and I actually were in the playtesting pretty much for this, weren't we? Because we played the very early version of it.
Yeah.
Sprawl Runners, mate. It's like £7. Get it.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than Cyberpunk Red for the money, and he's a great game designer, so yeah, definitely that.
Awesome,
Yeah,
man.
oh, mate. Definitely.
Alright, Lewis Pineda, what book or movie series would you like to see as an RPG? For me, it would be the Dungeon Book series by Philip Jose Farmer. Don't know what the fuck that is, but yeah, a book or movie you want to see turned into an RPG. Nick.
I thought about this the other day. What was it now? A book or a movie that needs to be turned into an RPG is the Stephen King's Dark Tower.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. I mean, yeah, we did it with Deadlands, but
Yes,
the thing
we
is
did.
that if you had a full setting book for it, that'd be fucking
Yeah,
great.
that's what I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's like fantasy, sci-fi, western. It's fucking great, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to see a proper rule set of that. Probably for Savage Worlds. But yeah. James, how about you, man?
I'm going to say, and I haven't actually watched any of them, but I know that there would be a great RPG if they did do it. But you know, like those weird, stupid, cult-followed, like Sharknado series?
Yeah.
Like
No,
them.
there is one of those that's
Well,
been
there is
made
one
into
already.
an RPG.
What?
Yeah, Trailer Park Shark Attack.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, yes. Well then.
It's already been done, mate. Your wish has come true.
Yeah, it's there. And actually, it's really quite good as well. It's
Yes.
basically, it's by Carl Kiesler for Savage Worlds, but you don't play wild cards, you play extras. So it means everyone dies in one wound, but the module comes with like 50 different characters. One of them's like a mole Santa, like there's hillbillies, all sorts. It's really great. And yeah, so you die in one wound, and then, you know, if you get to the bottom of the stack of characters, then you run out. But as you go through the trailer park, you'll kind of see, oh, there's another guy in a tree, and he's like, help me, and then he joins the team, you know, like it's kind of like a funnel, but for Savage Worlds.
Oh, nice. What about you, Harrison?
I don't know, man. I don't really watch much TV. I do read a lot of books. I mean, look, okay, I do watch a lot of TV, but I only watch trash, right? That's sort of my thing.
That's all right.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are we making then?
See, that would be good. That's one of my favourites. But The Apprentice, easily, hands down. I know there's that card game. What is it? I, Dark Overlord, that's kind of similar.
Yeah.
I'd love to play. The Apprentice is easily my favourite fucking show. And I would love to play that. Because it's just watching people that think they're the greatest fail at GCSE level business tasks. And it is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I would love to do that, like a bunch of fucking idiots trying to succeed at business. That would be fun.
That would
I'd
be
play
pretty
that.
hilarious.
I'd play that.
I mean, let's be honest. Tough Guys is probably going to be quite similar to that. A bunch of idiots trying to succeed
That's true.
at something they're not qualified for.
Oh, yeah.
We got a couple more questions left here. The next one is slightly heavy, but I actually think it's quite a good question and one to speak about. And then we've got a really fucking stupid one to follow up at the end, so we'll balance it out. Terry Hansen, he says, legitimate question to make up for all my shit questions. Do you think Wizards of the Coast is trying to prove they are inclusive? Yes, there has been a severe deficit on the inclusivity market in the history of RPGs. Should it be the company's sole responsibility to very publicly show that they are accepting and encouraging diversity? Is it because they're currently in such a mainstream environment? I know companies like Paizo are very inclusive, but it is inherent in their publications and actions. Wizards of the Coast almost seems to be trying so hard to make its point that it comes across as insincere. I swear I have gay black furry friends, he puts in quotes there. Maybe I'm just getting long in the tooth and becoming part of the old generation that just shakes their head at the youth. I always viewed RPGs as a hobby for the disenfranchised, the outcasts, the freaks and geeks. It was the game we played together and escape into a game of teamwork and adventure. The whole time we gave the middle finger to all the normal, boring people. So yeah, I mean, on the subject of companies trying hard to be inclusive, I think that this comes down to the fact that I think recently, you two, Wizards of the Coast announced that they were going to have their first wheelchair accessible dungeon, which is insane. And I obviously think inclusion is a good idea, but the reason that it seems forced is because if they really cared about it and if it was their real emotions and it wasn't just motivated by business, they would have done it to begin with. And even Paizo's even Paizo's sort of guilty of that, because in first edition Pathfinder, all the women were drawn in that typical fantasy way where they're wearing just about nothing.
Yeah.
And you know, when you seek big businesses to represent you, you're always going to be disappointed, because if they're only doing it because people have shouted at them, well, then of course it's insincere.
The thing is, I don't think they should shout about it. It should be like, say for instance, they want to get on, I don't know, the hype, because I know that the inclusivity and diversity is pretty ripe at the minute. But if they wanted to do that, they should just make their next release just mention something about it in the rules, but not draw attention to it, because then slowly it will actually feed out into the people that care. It'll be like, oh, here's a dungeon, and by the way, just because it's a dungeon, that doesn't mean you have to walk using your legs. You can put a wheelchair in there if you choose to, you know, something like that, where it's kind of, you just slip it in there.
But I feel as if it is, and like you say, James, like they should just bake it as part of the setting and not make a big deal out of it, because when you the trouble is when you make I can't speak for people like black people or gay people or anything like this, because let's be honest, I'm not a minority. I'm quarter Polish, but I don't think that really counts. I will say this though, my wife is disabled, and that's something that I often think about. You know, when there's been a couple of shows out there that have had her disease on it. For example, Bates Motel, there's a girl in it who has cystic fibrosis, and when you watch it, you go, I wonder if they did a good job of it. But it's not. When people try to ham-fist it in, making a wheelchair accessible dungeon completely defeats the point of playing someone like yourself if you are disabled in a game, because look at the Dark Tower, for example. It's probably one of the most inclusive books ever. I mean, one of the main characters is a black schizophrenic woman in a wheelchair, right? And the point of the character and what makes her strong is overcoming a non-accessible world despite the fact that she has these conditions, right? And it's the same with my wife. The reason I look up to her, the reason I think that she's great, is because her condition does make everything harder, and the world isn't built for her and to make her life easier, but she does it anyway. That's sort of the point. And I think that when you pander to people and go, hey, you disabled guys can have fun too, it just kind of, it always seems sincere. And it's because it's a big company. I'm sure there are plenty of games out there that represent disabled people in a decent way, but I don't care. For me, I don't know if you guys agree, when I think about inclusivity in games, if I see a book, right, and there's no black people in it, but I want black people in my game, I'm the GM. Then the very nature of these games is that you can put that in.
Just because they're not described in there doesn't mean you can't be them.
Yeah, and you know, like, for example, Tough Guys as a setting, and Wise Guys, actually, because Wise Guys is a very faithful recreation of Italian mobsters and even includes the history in there. Eric originally, you know, when he was doing research for that book, he found that the mafia consisted only of Italian men, right? So, but it is kind of boring just to only play those people. So he altered his setting because he wrote it to include the associates. So that's why we have the associates in Wise Guys. It means that you can play absolutely anyone. You can play a woman. There's a Black Elvis character as an archetype because it can be more fun to play that. But if a book, say for example, I picked up a book and there was absolutely none of these types of people in here and things like this, but I still like the system, I just alter that when I play the game. I think it's more up to the GMs to make this difference. D&D is a generic fucking system for making generic fantasy, and you can do whatever you want with it. I mean, I'm currently I played in before a game with a bunch of pretty much I think everyone who was in the game. It was an old school D&D game. Everyone was gay, and except for me, obviously. And the game was like had a lot of like LGBTQ themes and characters and things like this because D&D is so simple to put that stuff in yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's part of the joy of it. So I don't think there's any point.
Don't let the big companies do it for you. Do it yourself. Use your own initiative.
Yeah,
exactly, because they're never going to be sincere about it.
And going back to Terry's original question, yes, Wizards of the Coast are trying too hard.
As are Paizo, though. To be fair, I mean, and to be perfectly honest, if you are a minority, you want. I mean, I would rather play the games written by people that know the things I've been through. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If indeed that is what you're looking for. If you, say for example, you are disabled and you really want a game that does it faithfully and it doesn't exist, make it yourself.
Yeah.
And if there is one that does it faithfully, play that instead. That's all you need to do, if that's what you're after. Or, as I said, but I think my personal opinion is the GM should be putting it in on their level. Yeah. Because you can't trust companies to do the right thing. They're not going to.
No, that's right. Exactly.
Now let's get fucking silly, shall we, guys? Because John the Paladin, he says, at a work party, I once saw a colleague down a pint that had fag butts in it. That means cigarette ends, for those who don't know. What's the worst thing you've witnessed at a work do?
Wow.
Wow.
You know, the weird thing about that email is I've seen somebody do that before as well. James, I'll bleep her name, but you know her. Do you remember when you could smoke in pubs? She was putting all of her fucking cigarette butts into a jug that we'd previously used as a pitcher, obviously with beer in it, and then drank
and a little sip
liquid that was in there. Like, yep.
What? That's nasty, mate.
Nasty.
Yeah, she was pretty gross. It was quite funny because later that night she came on to me and I was like, "No, you're right.
Fag ash breath.
You've been drinking fag juice."
No, you're right. Literal fag ash mouth.
But he's weird, as John says. The things that happen at work parties is fucking mental. James, you must have some stories.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, there was one thing which, from a work standpoint, was pretty ridiculous. Someone basically got carted out in a fucking stretcher for doing drugs, but they kept their job. And I still don't know how they managed that. They kept their job. They got carted past, a few director levels and they kind of shrugged it off. But like literally everyone knew why they were in that state. But they kept their job and even at some point got a promotion. It's just like, oh my lord.
I mean, I know which company that was for, right? And I used to work for that same company, and I fucking hated it for that very reason. It's just if you can lick enough manager arsehole, you're gonna get ahead in that job. It was fucking horrible. I've got a pretty good one actually. It's not necessarily the weirdest thing, but it was very funny. I used to work for a bicycle company. in a specific department. I'm not going to get into the right. It doesn't matter. But the point is that we once they once gave us a weekend away, right, at this hotel. And told us it was for a treat, and really what they were trying to do is get ideas out of us for free. That's an actual fact. And they were like, "Hey guys, I know we've got a mountain biking trip coming up, but let's go to this meeting room we've rented out." And they were like, "So how do you think we can promote this new scheme that we're doing?" And we were like, "Oh my god, they tricked us." Anyway, it was pretty funny because there was this saleswoman that worked with us, and she was fucking hammered, man, like absolutely. But like blottoed. She'd been buying wine by the dozen using her company credit card, right? And the CEO was with us. And she goes up to the CEO and brings another bottle of champagne over to the table. She's like, "Hey, go, Mark." And Mark's like, "Oh, thanks so much, Nick. I really appreciate it." Oh, I'm going to bleep her name. But he's like, "Thanks so much for that, mate. I really appreciate that." And he starts drinking it. She's like, "What do you mean? Why are you so thankful?" He's like, "Well, I just appreciate the gift." And she's like, "No, the company's paying for it, right?" And he's like, "No." And she'd spent nearly 600 quid on booze that night. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Oh, my Lord.
She eventually got sacked.
Oh, yes.
It was unrelated. It wasn't for that. But it was fucking mental. It was like, it was just all the 40-year-old women, they just get rat-ass. They go mental, and then they come into work the next day like it was nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just back to normal, back to
Like,
quiet.
how are you still alive?
I know. Nick, any good things you witnessed at work do?
Oh, just similar, really. Just drunk people. I remember someone was really drunk and had like 2 wine bottles in their hand, and they were. Oh
Yes.
God. Yeah, you know, classic. Someone was sick on a dance floor once. Yeah,
It's like that.
you know.
That's like the type of thing that when you get back to work, that's when you get like a nickname. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's puke floor, or it's all right, wine hands. Amy Winehands.
Amy Winehands.
I used to work at a. I used to. But this is the last thing I'll say on this matter. All right.
Okay.
But yeah, I used to work at a company selling double glazing, right? And people know where this is going already because those companies are so fucking dodgy. Like they're really bad. Our manager used to smoke weed every day in the car park. Like we smoked in the office. We fucking just sat there playing games. Like it was so bad. It was such a horrible company to work for and so fucking scummy. I used to do it door to door. I used to do it over the phone. And it's actually probably one of the best jobs I've had because it was just mental. Basically, they had this rule. If we got enough leads, we would get a party every Wednesday. And at the time, bear in mind, our boss was a guy that everyone saw stab somebody at a party because our place of work was near a really rough area. And he got away with it on some sort of technicality. But everyone knows he stabbed a guy, and he was our boss, right? So every Wednesday we get a party if we got enough leads, and the guy just really wanted to drink on the company's money. So even if we didn't get enough leads, we would get a party anyway. So every Wednesday we had a party, and our boss at one point had a bit of beef with this guy with this guy whose name I'm not going to mention. And this is the guy that stabbed somebody, right? And they had a fucking huge fight in one of the offices, like chairs going everywhere, chucking phones at each other, nutting each other. It went fucking crazy. And then outside, the manager was outside, and he started crying. He was like, "I can't believe I hit him, man. What's wrong with me?" And it was just like, mate, sick party. Thanks, guys. We all took the boxes of wine and took them back to some woman's house. It was fucking mental.
Oh dear.
But yeah, great place to work. I remember eventually it went bankrupt and we all stole everything from the office. And as we were being told we'd lost our jobs, the acting manager at the time stood in front of the TV and went, "You're not having the fucking telly. I've bagsied it." Oh, such a good place to work, man. It was always eventful.
Sounds crazy.
It was nuts. It was fucking nuts. But yeah, that's it, I guess. Yeah, work parties. They're fucking crazy, especially in England, man. It's just there's a sacking every time. You know, somebody's always puking up. Yeah, good times. All right, well, that is going to be it for another episode. Thank you very much for your questions. Shall we do an outro, lads?
Shall we?
Yeah.
I just don't want to catch him in bed with a goblin. But if he's in there rolling around hacking him up and he's got a goblin guide, taking him into the cave, I'm not expecting him to not get dirty.
All right, well, that was it. That's a podcast.
Yes.
All right.
And goodbye.
No, we've got to do the contact information. Nick, hit us with the contact information.
If you would like
Can't be
to
bothered.
send a contact over, please do at freetrpgpod@gmail.com, or hit us up on the socials, you know where we're at, Twitter, Facebook. And most importantly, if you'd like to chuck us a buck, then why don't you pop over to the Patreon and do that. It's much appreciated, and we love the support. And yeah, you can pledge and become a part of the Dark Army like the other guys.
Yeah, and we could really do with the money, mate. Come on, give us a little bit. Give us 10p for a cup of tea.
Exactly. And why not go over to Drive-Thru RPG and check out Free T RPG Publishing?
Oh, why not? Yeah.
Oh, we'll make RPG products for food.
Yes,
Please. Need to get some bread. All right, well, I've been Harrison Hunt.
I've been Nick Lambslice.
I've been Jimmy Clark.
And remember, the D20s are cool, but 20Ds. Now that's a good time.
Fuck it. Now, what an outro.
My deepest apologies, listeners.
Nailed it.